the key word is guilt. And like guilt can hunt you down like Johnny Law, or it can haunt you no matter where you are, like a ghost. So I just think it's all a way of portraying like how guilt can follow you and find you and stalk you, and bring you unrest. Hey, everybody out there. Welcome back to another episode of the Audiophiles. I'm Andy, that's John, and we're going to dig into some music today as per usual. John's going to offer up a tune for me to go off and listen to. I'm going to do just that, and then we're going to come back and discuss it at length, I'm sure, especially knowing us. John, what is the track and who is the artist?
Okay, so we're going back to Mr. Tom Waits,
Oh,
and the track is Blue Valentines.
okay. All right. Well, much to my own surprise, I had a great time listening to Mr. Waits on our last endeavor into his discography. So I'm, given those circumstances, I'm a little bit more interested and looking forward to and optimistic about what we have in store today. So you said the name of the track was again?
Blue Valentines.
Blue Valentines. Okay. Well, yeah, even that name is interesting. Yeah, let me go off, give this thing a go, and I'll come back and let you know what I think. Hmm.
She sends me blue Valentine all the way from Philadelphia to mark the anniversary of someone that I used to be.
Ooh, I really like that line. To mark the anniversary of someone that I used to be. It's an interesting line. And it's instantly evocative. Like, what does that mean? Who did you used to be? And why did you change? And why would we mark, or why would someone mark the anniversary of those changes? Interesting stuff. Really pretty guitar. Kind of got like these strummed chords that sound very pretty. Although it they sounded like they're at the it flirted between the full chord strum and a little bit of like arpeggio work as well. But it sounds very lonesome. Uh, Not only the guitar, but the mood of the song already. Though we're only briefly into it, which probably go hand in hand. And there's a reason why the music took on this kind of lonesome, woeful sound, because it sounds like the subject matter is going to be along the same lines, and his delivery matches that as well. Although I have to say, like, I've heard Tom Waits' voice a lot, actually, for not being like. For a while, just wasn't a big fan of his, but I've like sort of like John did. I grew to like some of his stuff, though I couldn't wrap my heart around all of it. Now maybe that'll change, and the amount of stuff by him will grow that I like will grow over time, which is kind of probably how it works for most people. But he has this in this delivery, and a couple that I've heard before, but this is really a great example of it thus far. Anyway, is how he has this like Louis Armstrong kind of gravelly, throaty voice, and yet there's still like warmth in it that can attract you. So yeah, I like the way it sounds so far. It's very, like I said, it's very evocative, and I think it's because of all the emotions that it kind of suggests are involved. So yeah, let's take that back. and try to get the intro to that first verse and see where we go from there.
From Philadelphia.
Ooh, let's take it just a little bit farther back. Pardon me, y'all.
Blue Valentines all the way from Philadelphia to mark the anniversary of someone that I used to be. And it feels like a whirlwind is out for my rest. Baby, you got me checking in my rearview mirror.
So he's like paranoid about it.
That's why I'm always on the run. That's why I changed my name. And I didn't think you'd ever find me here to send me blue Valentines, like half-forgotten dreams.
Yeah, this is that arpeggio guitar.
Like a pebble in my shoe as I walk these streets, and the ghost of your memory, baby, it's a thistle in the kiss. It's the burglar that can break a rose's neck. It's the tattoo, broken promise I gotta hide beneath my sleeve. I'm gonna see you every time I turn my back.
These are incredibly evocative lyrics. I mean, this is a masterclass in prose, what he's writing about here. Like the thistle and the kiss, a burglar that could break a rose's neck. Man. And then he equates, I don't know, this broken promise to a tattoo that he's got to hide under his sleeve. I mean, he clearly has done somebody or multiple people wrong. Either the sender of these blue Valentines, is perhaps someone with whom he had an affair, but had to break things off, or the person on whom he cheated. And either way, it sounds like it's eating at him, and he's been trying to avoid it or run from it, and it's catching up to him, and he's feeling the full emotional weight of that, to a point where you begin to commiserate and even empathize with him, though it's to this point sounds very much like he's the villain in the story. Second guitar. It's like loose, bluesy feel to it. That's pretty.
Send me blue Valentines, though I try to remain at large. They're insisting that our love must have a eulogy.
Ooh, damn.
Why do I save all this madness here in the nightstand drawer? That a home on my shoulders. Baby, I know.
Okay, so he's talking about keeping these letters, these blue Valentines, in his nightstand drawer, and they they haunt him, which reminds me very much of the same. It's very similar to the narrator in Poe's A Telltale Heart, where the idea of something that has been stashed away in a certain location haunts the individual from there. So this is the instead of the beating heart beneath the floorboards, it's the blue Valentines in the nightstand, which is interesting. I don't know if that was his intent, but being a nut for Poe, that's the first place my brain went hearing that line. God damn, he's an excellent lyricist. This is a great example of that too.
I'll be luckier to walk around everywhere I go with this blind, broken heart sleeps beneath my lapel. Instead, these blue Valentines to remind me of my cardinal sin.
Okay.
I can never wash the guilt or get these blood stains off my hands.
So it sounds like confirmation right there. The guilt, the wanting to wash the blood stains, his cardinal sin. This all sounds very much like it's tied in some way to infidelity. So I think my suspicions have been proven true. God damn, this is for as simple as this is, it's really pretty and very emotionally evocative.
It takes a whole lot of whiskey to make these nightmares go away. And I cut my bleeding heart out.
First of all, that note was really cool and clearly stood out from all the other guitar notes during the verses. And the way it was this piercing pitch when he's talking about cutting his heart out has to be intentional. And whether it is or it isn't, I think it's genius. This idea that this note pierces almost like the first prick of an incision that's got to be intentional, and it is, again, Mr. Redundant over here, wildly clever. I want to hear that again. I really, really enjoyed that.
Stains off my hands.
Okay.
It takes a whole lot of whiskey to make these nightmares go away. And I cut my bleeding heart out every night. And I'm gonna die just a little more on each St. Valentine's Day. Don't you remember? I promised I would write you these blue Valentines, blue Valentines, blue Valentines.
God damn. Yeah, I loved that. I mean, what more is there to say that I didn't probably distract from the reaction by saying throughout? This is really well written, very stripped back, both musically and from like an ego standpoint. Like there's he's kind of hanging himself out to dry here with this one and really putting himself out on the line, saying, "Hey, these are the circumstances. I'm kind of the piece of shit in this scenario, and I'm not proud of it, and this is how I feel." Um, and it's clear that he's made other people hurt too. So yeah, he does this. It's written so well and so beautifully that by the end of it, shit, by halfway through, you're already starting to like sympathize with him, even though he's clearly done somebody wrong and made promises he couldn't keep, and cut off communications to someone who's now sending him Valentines or letters that he promised he himself would send to them. And the guitar is so gentle and somber and woeful. It matches the mood and helps set the mood so perfectly. I mean, the lyrical content is the same emotional pitch as the musical content. So they go hand in glove to create this really beautiful piece of music, that is so it underscores the imperfection of man, I think, really well, and how we grapple with some of our poor decisions that we make that affect other people, and how we process that. Yeah, it's a lot, and it's really interesting, and I think it's sad, but it's relatable, and perhaps that it's relatable, it is sad. But I really fucking enjoyed this tune. I loved his voice in this. I know that is probably the idea of his voice is probably a polarizing issue, which we've discussed before. And I'm sure there are songs out there. As a matter of fact, I'm certain that there are songs out there that he has sung that I do not like because of his singing. This is not one of them. This was great. And I loved the prose in this. Expert lyricism and really raw, unfiltered, and unflattering. But real as shit. Yeah, man, put me down as a big fan of this. I can't wait to chop this up with John and learn about who this is directed to or what inspired the song. Perhaps he has more information on that. I am hoping he does. But yeah, let's get back to him.
Papa Don't Preach, he's back. So you've had a listen to A Blue Valentines by Tom Waits. What do you reckon?
I heard. Well, now you got "Papa Don't Preach" stuck in my head, so I got to get back into Tom Waits mode here. Yeah, I don't know if Mr. Waits is Catholic. I know that I'm not. But so I've had very little experience in this. But this seems about as close to a kind of confessional as you can get from a musical standpoint. There are he's an interesting character throughout this, which made for an even more interesting listen and experience taking all of this in. Some really pretty and lightly strummed and almost tinny chords kind of mark the start of the track. And soon Waits begins singing the first verse, and he does so while employing his best Louis Armstrong impression. He definitely has a bit of that throaty crooning to his delivery. And he talks about how she sends him blue Valentines all the way from Philadelphia to mark the anniversary of someone that he used to be. And I gotta say, I fucking love that last line. It's instantly evocative and suggests some deep change in himself and perhaps the nature of the relationship between him and the author of these blue Valentines. So instantly, I'm already like sucked into the exposition. I mean, the way the music is going at this point, and spoiler alert, how it does throughout the whole song, kind of lends itself to that anyway. It's this lovely, kind of paper on which this interesting story is penned. So it acts as a lovely vessel for, as I mentioned, this confessional type lyricism that pours out of Tom in this track, and yeah, it's it's awesome. Apparently, this leaves him somewhat paranoid and concerned, as he equates the receipt of them to an arrest warrant, and spurs him to go on the run. And at this point, the faint guitar that sort of started in the beginning, I'm starting to notice more like arpeggio usage rather than fully strummed chords, which kind of at the very, very beginning kind of set the tone. And now they're just sort of, he's cascading over the strings with his pick, creating that lovely effect that arpeggio has. So yeah, they each have this like kind of sparkle or twinkle to them, and the way that they're mixed adds to this because it gives them this distant star or fading light kind of feel to it, which, given the nature of the lyrical content, is like a completely sensible match. The fading star, it can be correlated to this fading relationship that he's trying to avoid. The exposition is saturated with more evocatively suggestive lyrics that illustrate or allude to feelings of regret. He sings of half-forgotten dreams and equates the blue Valentines and their contents to a pebble in his shoe, and the memory of their author to the thistle in a kiss, a burglar that can break a rose's neck, and perhaps my favorite of these, tattooed broken promise that he needs to keep beneath his sleeve in order to hide it. All of these lyrics are a masterclass in prose, and wonderful uses of metaphors and similes and all these lovely little literary mechanisms that I'm already a nerd for. So, and he's doing it very deftly. So I'm like, kudos to him. I'm enjoying the shit out of the song. This is followed by some loose, bluesy guitar lead over top of that sort of cascading like guitar. So I believe we've got, for the first and only time in the track, two guitars featured, and it sort of noodles to and fro. With the subtlety of the B in subtle. It just is so blues forward in its sound, which again matches the tone and tenor of this track perfectly. The second verse then commences, and Waits continues to wax poetically in forlorn fashion about receiving these blue Valentines. We get more insight into the state of the relationship between himself and the sender, as he mentions that they're insisting that our love must have a eulogy, which is both beautiful and sad. That's a really nice way of putting that the other person deserves the finality that he has robbed them of. Everyone deserves to know what and why exactly. And it's not fair to leave them in this sort of ambiguous state. But despite that, as the song grows and you know that he is painting himself as the villain, um, as much, I mean, the guy's not fucking guilty of murder here, but he is the villain in this relationship. You're still sympathizing with him more and more and more as the song goes. Which either makes him a great communicator or a narcissist, or perhaps both. But he's really good at making you feel bad for him, even though he's clearly the perpetrator in this situation. So despite what they make him feel, he still collects the letters in his nightstand drawer where they seem to haunt him, like the beating heart beneath the narrator's floorboards in A Telltale Heart. These letters just loom ominously inside, tucked away in this drawer, almost teasing him and haunting him. And I know I'm a nerd for Poe. I live in Baltimore, but the home of Poe. But it's hard for me not to draw that correlation to this idea of something that he went out of his way to hide, tends to, its presence grows despite that, right? Which is the whole theme of the Telltale Heart. So that's instantly where my mind went. More information can be inferred from the lyrics as the verse continues to unfold. Waits mentions the letters only serve to remind him of his cardinal sin and the guilt he feels, which suggests the infidelity I assumed all along, either with the sender or perhaps committed against the sender with another. So it's this that's kind of ambiguous too. Like, is the sender someone with whom he had an affair and needs to cut off all communication, which is slightly more understandable, but still, or is the sender someone on whom he's cheated with another? So it's a little ambiguous, but that ambiguity only adds to the interest of the listener. At least that was my experience. Like, ooh, are we going to get more of this? I love a bit of goss, so give me all the tea, and I want to know what happened here. He also mentions ridding his hands of bloodstains, though I take that to be metaphorical and not literal, as he clearly seems to be owning his wrongdoing, or at the very least is coming to grips with the fact that he can no longer run from it. There is this line where he confesses to cutting out his bleeding heart, or cutting his bleeding heart out every night, and when he delivers that line, and I cut my bleeding heart out, there is this distinctly louder and less muddled note from the guitar that pierces the soundscape, much like the initial puncture of the skin by a blade, which is what he's alluding to. If this was the intent, it's yet another genius bit of musical decision making. The way that sound could easily mirror the first jolt of pain from an incision, that's just wildly clever. So I loved that. He acknowledges that he once promised he too would send blue Valentines to this individual, but it's clear he never made good on that promise either. This man is swimming in a sea somewhere between self-loathing and guilt-ridden, and it's enough, again, to make you empathize with him, even though he's clearly conveyed that he's the bad guy in the story and is responsible for all of this shit that he's going through, all these emotions that he's feeling, and the emotions that he's making others, at least one other, go through. If heartstrings were stretched across a fretboard and tuned to E, A, D, G, B, and E again, this is what it would sound like when strummed. Faint, longing, remorseful, and riddled with regret. I love this track in all of its raw, unfiltered, and ultimately unflattering lyricism, which, coupled with the aforementioned simple but poignant guitar, made for something incredibly emotive. So yeah, tell me more about this one. I fucking loved it.
Excellent. So I picked this song because I really, really like his vocal performance in this. There's so much subtlety. When he's much earlier in his career, he's doing this kind of, sort of drunk at the piano type style, this beatnik poet, all that sort of stuff. Later on, he's, this hellish nightmare sort of voice, and this is right in the sweet spot in between where he has got that gravel and gravitas, but he's breathing through stuff, and just it's not like technically a fantastic voice, just the performance is just beautiful. It's one of my favorite vocal performances of him, played straight. The narration of this I knew you'd love as well. I have to say as well, I absolutely adore the guitar solo in this. I think it's just fantastic, and it's all about context, as in the context of the song. If you took the guitar solo in isolation, it's all right, but within the song, it's just wonderful. And this is probably, if you chop, it's definitely top 3 Waits album for me. It's probably my favorite of his first period, which is the sort of more straightforward stuff, as it were, before he gets experimental. So let's get into it. We've already listened to an episode of Tom Waits' Shore Leave, so I'll link to that, and more stuff about him is in that episode that I skirted around. I'm just going to concentrate on this album and this track. So it comes from the album Blue Valentine, singular. Okay, it's the kitty there. It was the 6th studio album by Mr. Waits, released in September 1978. Asylum Records, and you'll see stuff referred to the Asylum years, which is obviously this sort of period. You did it. The album was recorded in the course of 6 sessions in July and August. So July and August record, release the album in September. That's how easy it is. Wow, just so some people refer to the interesting title Blue Valentine. It's these most sort of bluesy album, actually. There's a lot of sort of jazz stuff earlier on and singer-songwriter stuff. And this is probably the most bluesy. So some people say it's almost like a Valentine to the blues, this album as well. The album itself, I'll just go through it. It starts with Waite's first ever recorded cover version, which is an interpretation of Somewhere from West Side Story by old Bernstein. And it starts off, and you think this is odd with his voice. And then it becomes more and more most beautifully orchestrated, and it ends up being this beautiful thing, which you didn't expect. There's some really great tracks on there. There's a song called Red Shoes by the Drugstore, which is this eerie, almost feels like a murder mystery. There's I think a robbery going on and stuff, but it's very slow paced and eerie, but there's a really good reworking of it by The Wedding Present that's just stomper, and it's absolutely fantastic. Following on from that, there's a track called Christmas Card from a Hooker in Minneapolis, which you'll be getting for Christmas this year from me. And the reason this track stands out, not only on the album, but probably is near the top of Waite's entire catalogue, and that is a huge catalogue, is there's a guy who wrote this bit here, which I think is really interesting when we're talking about it. It culminated in using all the best tools in Waite's songwriting toolbox. His characters are so often muddied, lonely fools, stripped of their dignity by society, yet Waits never closes the door on them completely. The next paycheck, the next pretty girl, the next town over, something better is usually within reach. Without giving away the narrative and Christmas card, the titular hooker begins her letter by putting the hope first. Within a tale of a happy and settled life and a past left behind, she waxes sentimental about the good old days. Although the reality may differ, the theory here is that the facade earlier in the letter is no icebreaker. It is the life she chose for herself. It is, in a way, reality. But as in so many of Waits' songs and in life itself, circumstances are killer. Life happened while she was finding her husband and baby at home. And now if she could just borrow a little dough to get over this last hurdle, her dreams are waiting for her, nearly within reach. It's the same themes and methods shown in a lot of Waits' work, and it's difficult to fully dissect the importance of this track. It's probably lyrically the best track on the album. It's better than this song in terms of lyrics, honest, and narration. Really, really good. There's a great song after it, Romeo's Bleeding, which is another standout track for me. It's a violent tale about a Mexican gang leader who dies with a bullet in his chest, and it inspired a movie of the same name. Waits did a quote. He said, "There's more blood in this record, probably more detective type stories." He said at the time, "It just comes from living in Los Angeles and hanging out where I hang out. I kind of feel like I'm a private eye sometimes." This is great. And there's another track on it called $29, which apparently, if you can ever believe a word that he says, because he does love to spin a tale, even in real life when he's talking to people, he says that when he was present with an argument between a pimp and a prostitute who wanted him to reimburse her for the $29 dress she had torn by a client, I think, and an alligator purse, as the lyrics go. It's like the most bluesy song out of the lot. It's great, though. There's a couple more. Wrong Side of the Tracks is this weird. Whistling Past the Graveyard is one of my favorites as well. They're both guitar led, but different tempos. The first one's like a bluesy, soft shuffle, grubby side of the American dream. The second is this manic, hot stepping Waits full of swing and saxophone. The Kentucky Avenue is one of the few which is piano based, like his previous albums were, and it's a confessional, and it's possibly little anecdotes of his childhood and stuff. But again, and it's full of nostalgia and regret and darkness. Beautiful, beautiful orchestration, but you never know how much is really true. And then there's a song called "Sweet Little Bullet" from a Pretty Blue Gun, which is said to be based on the suicide of a 15-year-old girl who jumped to her death from a 17th floor window in Hollywood Boulevard. Fun stuff. And then this track is the album closer. So in terms of this album, it didn't get a lot of love at the time, and it's slowly grown to become a real fan favorite, and it's starting to get the recognition of being a really great album. It got to the dizzying heights of number 181 in the US album charts when it was released. It was his first album to ever chart outside the USA. It got to number 42 in Australia. It didn't chart in the UK, but it's a slow burner, and it is now certified gold selling. So it's done all right. For this track, it's Tom Waits vocals and electric guitar, and Ray Crawford who just did the solo. So yeah, a couple of little interesting bits here, which I got from a couple of the standard people we get the reviews from. We're all much of a much, but it's the weirdo fan base sort of, stuff which is more interesting and unexpected as well. So like punk news, which you wouldn't necessarily associate with Mr. Waits. The earlier records were largely based around the piano with sprinkles of soft strings and horns. Here, Waits did a much more blues-orientated sound with more electric guitar than ever, and allowing his gravelized voice to soar rather than attempt to subdue it. A wonderful mix of the combination of the old and the roots of the new. Blue Valentine is an essential album in the beautiful cacophony that is the discography of Tom Waits. There's a lovely sort of blog called Howl and Echoes, and they wrote, Blue Valentine is a beautiful, engaging, creative album, personal favourite in the Tom Waits inimitable catalogue. It showed me something so unique and unusual, simultaneously exposing me to wistful, lovelorn piano ballads and tales of homeless grave dwellers. It acted as a catalyst for so much more that came after. It opened up an entire world, a dark, smoky world of stories and of people and poetry, a world that even now is endlessly enthralling. So I'll get on to the lyrics. It's interesting because he sings it like a breath at a time almost. She sends me blue Valentines all the way from Philadelphia to mark the anniversary of someone that I used to be. And it feels like there's like a warrant's out for my arrest. Baby, you got me checking in my rearview mirror. That's why I'm always on the run. It's why I changed my name. And I didn't think you'd ever find me here. Just send me blue Valentines like half-forgotten dreams, like a pebble in my shoe as I walk these streets. And the ghost of your memory, baby, is a thistle in a kiss. It's the burglar that could break a rose's neck. It's the tattooed broken promise I gotta hide beneath my sleeve. I'm gonna see you every time I turn my back. Oh, and then we go to the guitar solo. Comes out. Oh, send me blue Valentines, though I try to remain at large. They're insisting that our love must have a eulogy. Why do I save all this madness in the nightstand drawer? There to haunt upon my shoulders. Baby, I know I'd be luckier to walk around everywhere I go with this blind and broken heart that sleeps beneath my lapel. Instead, these blue Valentines remind me of my cardinal sin. I can never wash the guilt or get these bloodstains off my hands. And it takes a lot of whiskey to make the nightmares go away. And I cut my bleeding heart out every night. And I'm gonna die just a little more each St. Valentine's Day. Don't you remember I promised you I would write you? These blue Valentines, blue Valentines, blue Valentines. Yeah, so there's a really interesting stuff. There's no consensus about the actual narrative line in this. There's various things. So at the start, there's a lot of imagery of law and order, and it's worn out from my arrest, checking rearview mirror, always on the run, blah blah blah. And then later on, I think he also says about after remain at large and stuff like that. So there's some theories that he is either on the run or just out of prison, and that's why the relationship ended. He's kind of looking back on it. There's other people that say he sort of ran away, and this person is hunting him down, as it were, and it's a reluctant relationship. But there is this final verse, this guilt, quite a Catholic thing. And the bloodstained hands, I just automatically think of Lady Macbeth, but
Yeah.
that's just me. But this, don't you? Because it's almost like he's saying these blue Valentines are haunting him. They're finding him. He changed his name. They're still finding them, and
Mhm.
even though they're causing him pain, as you say, he still keeps them on his nightstand drawer. This thing, it's also like picking at a scab, isn't it? Um, and then it says at the end, "Don't you promise that I would write you?" And you're wondering if he's an unreliable narrator, but actually he's sending just as many of these as he's getting in return, or whatever. It's just really interesting. Um, so yeah, you can read it different ways, but the imagery and the prose is just fantastic.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
just those little lines, that verse about the pebble in the shoe and the thistle and the kiss and the tattoo broken promise, just those 4 lines is enough. Stuff, fantastic stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely, absolutely. I would
and
say
this, go on.
I understand that like there are several allusions that could make you think law enforcement. I'm sure that, but I think but also hauntings, like you had mentioned, like this sort of like otherworldly, supernaturally way of he feels like
Yeah,
he's pursued, and I think the key word is guilt. And like guilt can hunt you down like Johnny Law, or it can haunt you no matter where you are, like a ghost. So I just think it's all a way of portraying like how guilt can follow you and find you and stalk you, and bring you unrest. So I just think you how many metaphors can you make? You get chased by the law, you get haunted by a ghost. Like what else is left after that? You know what I mean?
yeah,
So maybe being chased like prey from a predator or something. But all of his metaphors and all of it was just so well written and thought out. And you mentioned those few lines, and you're right. Like they maybe are the best few lines in the entire song. I would probably tend to agree with you. But you could probably cut a few lines anywhere from the fucking song, and it
yeah.
would have this like heft and profundity to it. Which only illustrates how, as a whole, this thing is just fucking excellently penned. It really
Yeah.
is.
I mean, the other sort of idea is also that he is personifying relationships rather than the people he has relationships with. So the actual relationship is a thing, which then these Valentines may relate to more than one relationship where he's fucked up. And it
Mhm.
could be that, and that's why he's got blood on his hands, because he's killed the relationship rather than the person. But,
Yeah, yeah,
look,
exactly. That's what I meant when I assumed it was
yeah,
being
yeah,
used in a metaphorical sense. It's the guilt of killing the love or the trust or both or maybe myriad other things that were taken out by his improprieties or whatever. So yeah, yeah, again, metaphor used definitely and well.
yeah. So it's a fantastic song anyway. It's a
It
great
is.
closer to an album. I found this on the comments below the video, just about the guy, because there isn't a lot about him. So John Hextall 1136 wrote, Ray Crawford, who's the guy who did the solo,
Yeah.
was a jazz guitarist whose career started playing sax with Fletcher Henderson in about 1941.
Jeez.
There's not much available on Amazon or YouTube apart from a few recordings with Ahmed Jamal and Cecil Payne. Even on Wiki, there is only a cursory article in French. He had a brittle, crystalline tone and a lyrical approach to improvisation. He contributes to this song um, from the late 70s and what is probably my all-time favorite guitar solo. At the end of it, even Tom gasped at the perfect beauty of what he's just heard.
Yeah.
So it's nice to mention him. So there you go, Blue Valentine.
Excellent.
I'll wrap things up. Thanks for listening, Sandy.
Thank you.
Folks out there, tell us what you think. Please hit the like button if you like this. Drop some comments. I'd love to hear from you about this track, this album, one of my favorites. Yeah, really interested to hear what you think. If you haven't subscribed already, please do. We really appreciate everybody who does support the channel. That being said, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see all of you in the next episode of The Audiophiles.
See you later, guys.